of the United Kingdom for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, once again, we would like to express our regret that you did not manage to find the courage impartially to uphold your obligations and not to act at the behest of those who insisted on holding a Security Council meeting on a non-existent agenda item. We categorically reject and condemn such actions by the Slovenian presidency, which undermine the authority of the Council and violate agreements previously reached. Another gross violation is the statement as a rapporteur by the representative of the EU. The JCPOA committee does not exist anymore, therefore the EU is not the coordinator anymore and therefore should not be allowed to brief the UN Security Council. Mr. President, nonetheless, it's very telling that you, neither in your role as President or as a Security Council facilitator on implementing Resolution 2231 before the 18th of October 2025, you didn't even attempt to start work on agreeing on a biannual coordinators report or conduct a customary informal expert meeting of the Security Council in the 2231 format. We view that as a testament to the fact that our Slovenian colleague, despite their bloc solidarity, are in fact fully aware of the undoubted fallacious arguments about continuing the actions of Resolution 2231. Alas, today's briefing by the USG Rosemary DiCarlo once again has shown that not far behind Slovenia, we find the UN Secretariat's leadership, which has adopted a biased and legally shaky position regarding discussions in the Security Council on the Iranian nuclear program, as well as no longer being in force, that is Resolution 2231, the mandate of the UN Secretary General to monitor 2231's implementation is no longer pertinent as well. And we've talked about that. The unwarranted decision by the Secretary General, therefore, to prepare and publish a relevant report does not hold water. In this context, we are disappointed by other steps taken by the UN Secretariat, informing member states of the organization about the so-called restoration of the anti-Iranian resolutions of the Security Council in force up until 2015, and also the re-establishment of the website with the long-closed Security Council 1737 committee and its sanctions list. Such an encroachment into the area of sole prerogative of the Security Council and playing into the hands of its Western members is nothing more than a gross violation of the UN Charter. In particular, Article 100 states, in the performance of their duties, the Secretary General and the staff shall not seek or receive instructions from any government or any other authority external to the organization. Moreover, all of these actions by the Secretariat leadership are undermining not only the UN's authority but also international efforts to settle the situation regarding the Iranian nuclear program, in which the Secretary General, according to his own assurances, is so interested. We consider all of this totally unacceptable. Mr. President, in 2025, Western countries took their masks off once and for all regarding the settlement of the Iranian nuclear program. If anyone still had any doubts as to their real position, then these positions have been revealed now once and for all. At the start of this year, many of us pinned great hopes on the resumption of mediated contacts between Iran and the US on the nuclear issue. There were 5 rounds of indirect negotiations, and the parties agreed to meet for a 6th round. However, 2 days before that, Israel opted for a military escalation and struck Iranian territory, including civilian nuclear facilities that were under IAEA safeguards. A week later, Western Jerusalem was joined by the US in this misadventure. These actions not only threatened the security of the entire Middle East region, but also de facto wiped out the chances of achieving any agreement. Given this, the steps of the E3 to the JCPOA, the UK, France and Germany were the height of hypocrisy. These countries, despite their previous statements about the unacceptability of a military solution regarding the Iranian nuclear program, just turned on a dime and decided to support the strikes on a sovereign state. I'd like to quote what my UK colleague said in this chamber on the 22nd of June. Military action alone cannot bring a durable solution to concerns about Iran's nuclear program. In other words, London was prepared to view military strikes and threats as a lever to resolve the crisis regarding the Iranian nuclear program, thus fundamentally changing its position to please its older brother in just a few hours. Have a think, colleagues. This was an attack not only on Iran, but on the entire NPT architecture and the IAEA safeguards procedure underpinning it. The E3, the US, moreover, and other Western countries plumped for a direct warping of the report of the Director General of the IAEA, and not once, which never and in nowhere mentions any conversion of material into military purposes, any attempt to pin the blame on Tehran for these steps, which were taken purely in response to the unilateral withdrawal of the US when it withdrew from the nuclear deal in 2018, are doomed to failure and are just actions of amateurs. Anybody who knows the slightest bit about the topic perfectly understands that the NPT and the Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement does not impose upon states party to the treaty any restrictions on enriching uranium under the condition that this material be solely used for peaceful purposes. Over the past few months, it's become completely clear that the E3 is still a completely non-viable participant of the negotiation process. They initially sought to play the snapback card. The situation still was not to their liking. They were bothered by what our country and other member states in the international community put forward, namely convincing legal analyses explaining that the E3, through its numerous violations of the JCPOA and 2231, that the E3 forfeited its right to use the instruments stipulated therein. Furthermore, the so-called announcement about the launch of the snapback mechanism by our UK, French and German colleagues, which was conducted in complete circumvention of the JCPOA's procedures, in particularly not to use and exhaust the dispute resolution mechanism, was significant. Therefore, as any respectable lawyer can confirm, no assertions of the former European participants of the JCPOA can replace the reality, which does not restore the actions of the anti-Iranian resolutions of the Security Council. Then the E3 demonstrated its inability to take independent actions and decisions. The agreement that was taken on the sidelines of the UNGA high-level week between Iran and European countries on an interim solution came up against the US's position, which nullified its starting parameters and those of the E3. The E3 just pretended, however, that nothing happened. Even after this humiliation, the Europeans did not find enough courage to support the depoliticized Russian-Chinese draft resolution on a technical extension of Resolution 2231. This would have given additional time to find a negotiated solution without causing any legal vacuum after the JCPOA expired. Given this powerlessness, we are not surprised by the attempts of the UK, France and Germany with renewed vigour to try to convince everyone around them that this snapback indeed worked. However much our Western colleagues want to create their own parallel reality, the real situation does not give them any chance to do so. The restoration of the resolutions adopted in 2026 to 2015 is not viable. The term of 2231 expired on the 18th of October. The Iranian nuclear program is no longer a subject on the Security Council agenda. We should not forget that the aims of the previous sanctions resolution regarding Iran have been achieved, and this has been documented by the AIEA. In such circumstances, the previous restrictions are non-viable and cannot be used to eradicate any issues today in terms of the monitoring activity of the agency in the Islamic Republic, especially because these problems arose not because of Tehran, but because of the American-Israeli acts of aggression. All of these things further underscore the unviability of any assertions to or desire to establish the sanctions regime. Once again, we would urge our American and European colleagues and also the UN Secretariat to stop living in a world of illusion and to focus on avoiding these mistaken course. The Russian Federation will continue to hamper any attempts to continue to undermine the normal work of the Security Council or to call into question any decisions that have previously been taken or to mislead the international community. If the US and European countries and their allies really want to eradicate any doubts regarding the solely peaceful purposes of the Iranian nuclear program, they should take off their politicized glasses and stop exerting maximum pressure on Iraq and return to real dialogue with the country. Tehran has repeatedly demonstrated its preparedness to have a fair, balanced discussion and has named the parameters that are acceptable to it. Russia is prepared to assist any genuine attempts to find a political and diplomatic solution to this issue. We would urge all to focus on that and not to create castles in the sky or to talk about their phantom limb pains regarding Resolution 2231. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for the statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Somalia.